Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and peasants of all ages, when the four swordsmen unsheathed their mighty swords and thrust them so the four tips touch, the commoners drip from the floods of their thunderous power.
Well, hello everybody. How is everybody doing today?
Hello,
LittleWolf,
hello.
Tanner?
How's it going?
Actually doing okay. I didn't get as much sleep as I wanted, but I'm here.
I'm in the same boat. Oh, look who showed up last
There's
minute.
our upside down man.
Hey, I'm not late. I'm right on time.
Actually, you're 1 minute late, but
Oh, well, technically. Shit, yeah. I gotta pee anyway, so I'll be back in a second.
By the
Ha!
way,
What?
the title was
Oh.
completely right. I did have a sleepover with LittleWolf.
Aw.
Anything you want to say, LittleWolf?
Oh, we're so cute.
Mm.
Actually, no.
I mean, you're not supposed to eat the mic, LittleWolf, but
I'll be back.
good girl, Raven.
Yeah.
Tiny Captain, Mark, always good to see you guys. Nickel, fuck you, I guess. You're cool, I suppose. Chris Durham, always amazing to see you here. So what has everybody been up to?
Oh boy. It's been a week. I've been dealing with migraines all week, so that's been exciting. And the dog's barking and whatnot. But the weather's getting better. It's warming up, so yay for that.
That's always a good thing. Yeah, it was pretty cold for a while there. Little Wolf, how have you been?
doing okay. Dealing with my sleep pattern going wishy-washy on me, but other than that, not bad.
Steve?
He's doing a Riley.
Probably.
What?
Oh, there he goes.
But he's missing because he's upside down.
Yeah.
Yep, that's totally it.
How you doing, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing well, considering I just woke up.
Yeah, I
So-
sent you that message at 4:30, and you showed up a minute later.
What's new with you, Foe?
Oh, not much. Have my doggo for the day. Been working. So nothing new really. But we did have some stuff to talk about today.
Yeah.
I brought something to talk about that I found on Instagram and talked to one of our rivals about. Tanner, I believe you brought something, and Little Wolf, you brought something as well.
I brought something, I'm just not going to talk about it.
I must have missed the train on what I brought. I forgot it already.
I thought you said on one of your last streams that you had something that you were bringing. If not, that's fine.
Oh God, I don't remember. Someone would have to remind me. It's been a hell of a week. Jesus Christ.
I
This
did just say I
migraine
just woke up.
torture.
That's a mood.
Yeah.
All of us are very unprepared, I think, other than Little Wolf.
I mean, the only thing I randomly can think of is I saw headlines today about a lot of red states trying to do a lot of legislation against trans rights, and it's kind of it's a topic that's I don't know how to feel about it. It's a lot of them seem to be mostly focused on not allowing trans people in certain sports. So if you on your birth certificate it says male and you're transitioning to be female, they don't want you playing female sports. And I like
Mm.
mixed feelings on it if I were to be honest with people. And some of it is, it's some of these kids who are transitioning usually do it prior to puberty, or they try to slow puberty down and stop it. And so it's not like you have this 6'2", 250-pound muscled out person um, who's just
Hmm.
now starting to transition, trying to play a female sport. So I'm mixed on it, but my biggest fear with this is that it starts to pave the way against other certain trans rights. It always seems like they want to target trans people, and I mean, if some of these legislators were to actually sit down with them and realize what kind of a decent person they actually are, and that they're not, they're not out here to try and um, change society, like overall and stuff like that. It's basically like, hey, I want to be recognized for what I have always felt inside, and that's it. Like there was one time where a trans female at a high school here in the Twin Cities um, used the women's bathroom. She identifies as female and has for
Hmm.
quite a long time, and was using the bathroom, sitting in a stall, and the teachers came in and used the ruler to unlock the stall door and open it up as she is sitting on the toilet. So there are
Wow.
adults standing there looking at an underage person sitting on the toilet. And that's
Yep.
where that's the only thing that I would say I would bring up this week, but it's not a topic that we really need to touch into or anything, and it's just kind of one of those like slippery slopes.
Well, yeah, but no, not really. Like, I don't care if it's a male or female, transgender, transitioning, whatever. No adult should ever have the right to do that to any child at a school.
No,
That is disgusting.
right. And then telling her to basically get off the toilet, and it's like, do you mind
Mm.
then closing the stall door and letting me have my privacy while I'm doing so? And as and there's literally like 3-4 faculty members standing there, and
Yeah.
again, that's just utterly disgusting. And the thing is, my biggest issue with this is people are so focused on genitalia, and you're basically sexualizing people who are underage, and you're
Hmm.
thinking about what it is that's in their pants. And to me, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's why are you focused on a person's genitalia? If the person's in there going to the bathroom and not doing anything for anyone else, then there shouldn't be an issue. Just kind of like when they were doing that whole um, trans ban bathroom thing, and they were arguing, there's people who are in there to molest or take advantage, and there was zero evidence of it happening. So they were focused all on this happening. Meantime, again, the coaches are the ones doing the molestation. The preachers are
Mm.
doing the molestation. The family members are doing the molestation. Yet they were focusing on these trans people who were literally just going into the bathroom to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know. So it was just something I saw today. I didn't dive too deep into it. I just saw that it was mostly focused around sports, and like
Mm.
I said, me personally, I have mixed feelings about it. I guess I would have to. I don't know.
We've had that same conversation here in Australia. So, like, Isaac Butterfield has put a video out about transgender people playing different sports where, like, say, football, for example. So you have a man that's now a woman playing female football. They're obviously going to be a lot bigger, a lot heavier, a lot more damaging when they tackle you to the ground. But, like, yeah,
It
when you're
you
going to
know
delve right into it like that, that is just messed up. Like, I don't have a problem with transgenders at all. I think if you
right.
want to play sport, play sport.
And that's where, like, I don't want to say I'm mixed on it and stuff like that. Because like I said, a lot of they're focused more so around like high school sports, and a lot of times,
Mm.
if you are trans, you figure that out before usually they're doing this before puberty, so they're not quite into what their adult body would be yet, and usually they're
Yeah.
taking hormones to do whatever it is that they need to do. And you can have a trans female who's got the exact same build as a cisgendered female, um and so there's really no advantage as far as certain things go. But anyways,
Yeah.
I
All
mean,
right. Yeah.
I can see both sides, and I think that it really doesn't matter until you get into the top end, extremely professional sports where people dedicate their lives to it. And for this, I'll point to MMA. Fallon
Yeah.
Fox. She entered the ring as a female before she even started taking hormones, and fractured the skull of her opponent.
yeah.
And even in the
Damn.
most brutal MMA fights, UFC stuff, you really don't see that happen, which
Mm.
shows just how much of a mismatch there was. Now, to be fair, that's more on the fight itself not being unfair than the matchup. I'm sorry. It was the matchup being unfair, not necessarily Fallon Fox, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So,
that's where I said I'm kind of mixed on it too.
yeah.
I don't want to say, like, if you're a late in life transitioning, that you don't have the right to do that. Because, like, it to me, it kind of is an unfair advantage if, say, you are a 28-year-old um, born male, and you're beefed up, and you by far have a structure advantage over maybe a typical female in the sport, and now you decide that uh, you want to transition into a woman, and maybe haven't even started the steps. That's where I do feel there is a gray ground on it, as far as, like, that doesn't quite
Yeah.
feel right to me. It seems very unfair. But like I said, considering it's high school, that to me changes a lot of stuff.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. It's not black and white. I was going to say it's a shade of gray,
Yeah.
but I
Well,
mean that leads to book title that's not very
right.
flattering either.
Yeah, like I said, my biggest fear is that it could start to lead into other legislation um for other things. And it's these, I don't want to call them these people, but trans people have every right to live a life just like everyone else, and to start stripping rights away um is yeah, it's basically you're calling people subhuman. I mean, there's more trans killings in the US than pretty much any other group out there. And I know quite a few trans people, and they're some of the most amazing, artistic, athletic, loving people you'll meet. And it's just too bad people have such a negative view on it, and that they want to strip the rights away of these of trans people.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. But
Yeah.
again, I'm kind of torn on it.
I just kind of think it's interesting where in America we're supposedly supposed to be this Christian type nation where it's like, oh, Jesus said love this person as your neighbor, and then all of a sudden they want to change what the meaning of that is.
Well, the biggest issue with Christianity is that they only love you if you are one of them. If you don't agree with their ideology, well, you're not technically their neighbor. And they will not treat you as such. They will treat you as subhuman. I don't know if you watch Telltale, but one of the things one of the Jehovah's Witnesses said is that they don't celebrate death, but when Armageddon is done and all of us who don't believe in Jehovah are dead, then that'll be a day worth celebrating. And stuff like that. So, they'll completely ignore whatever portion of the text that doesn't suit their narrative.
Yeah. And that's kind of like my video that I dropped on Thursday was kind of a change up from my normal dealing, and I wasn't trying to like, I lost subscribers because of that video, but I wasn't trying to attack one group more than the other. But I will say, when it comes to religion, and I'm not aiming at one particular religion. Just here in the U.S., it happens to be mostly Christians, but it's that's where a lot of things just turn very ugly, and yet you want to. A lot of these religions want to say, love one another and do this and do that, but yet, um, usually, like I said, in my experience and around the world, just I mean, you look at what it was at China, or what it was one of the Asian countries that were just tearing into Muslims, and it's religion has caused so much strife, and a lot of people want to say, oh, it's so good, it's so great, it's so positive, and yet they do this for such negative, horrible, disgusting things. And like you were saying, it's do as we say. Like, I know a lot of people who are very religious that are great people, and there's even Christian uh churches around that support the LGBTQ community and a lot of other things. Um, but there's just as equally as many that go completely against it, or completely against people of color, and how they respond to them and stuff. And even against Native Americans, or they look at females as basically servants. And it's there's supposed to be separation of church and state, and it really kind of truly doesn't happen.
I think that was one of my favorite things, kind of Islam, because I was a Muslim for about 3 years. And there were a couple of surahs in the Quran that actually stuck out to me when I was in there. And one of them, I'm kind of looking it up now, but it basically went about saying, I'm going to believe what I believe, and you're going to believe what you believe, and you're not going to believe what I believe, and I won't believe what you believe. So let's just leave it at that and go our separate ways and not fight about it. And then in another one, it said, if a Muslim kills an innocent being for no reason, they're going to be judged as if they killed all of mankind. And then if the Muslim saves an innocent being, they're going to be judged as if they saved all of mankind. And when you get down to it, like a lot of the just like regular Muslims, not the extremists, not the other way, but just the ones trying to get by. I've talked to so many of them, and it's a lot like with the transgendered people and the people from the LGBT community. When it comes down to it, we're all just trying to make it day by day and survive. And there's no reason why we can't do that.
Right. Exactly. You know, it's the other thing that people seem to forget is that so many religions, Christianity piggybacks off of Judaism and Islam piggybacks kind of off of Christianity. They're all essentially the same. It's just a matter of who's viewed as the Messiah or whatnot. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's at least my understanding. But the one thing, again, kind of going back to my experience in the U.S. and as far as uh, Christianity goes, is you know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if Christ came down, he came here um, to take all the sins of humankind and wash away all their sins. Now, it seems more so after the fact that people put in the stipulation of, oh, that's only the case if you believe in him. Uh, at the time, I wouldn't imagine the Son of God says, only if you believe in me will your sins be washed away. I thought it was just a matter of like, whatnot. And so it is kind of funny when people, say, oh, you're gonna go to a dark place if you don't follow him or don't believe in him. But then the other thing that I find kind of funny is what people seem to not realize is, like I said before, quite literally, it seems like your religion is based off of who you're born into and where in the world you're born. And so you'll have all these different religions fighting against one another, not realizing like, hey, if that person was born, here in the US, they might more likely be Christian. If they were born more likely in Asia, they might be Buddhist or whatever it might be. And they don't seem to grasp that you're taught this versus what your instincts are as far as a religion goes.
Yeah, and even in some of the Islamic run countries, that's one of the weird aspects that some people don't get is everyone likes to say that, oh, if you're in a Muslim country, you have to be Muslim. And that's something that actually really isn't true for the most part because when okay, yeah,
Yeah.
but when it comes down to it, there is a tax that people can pay to them to be able to do whatever religion that they feel like they should be doing.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that there aren't countries out there where they are the extreme Muslim and say you must be Muslim or you're going to die type thing. But
Right.
when they actually go by what the Quran says, you pay a tax, and then it's like any other type of war where one group has lost and the other one won.
Hmm.
When that's where taxes really started at, if I remember right, and they would pay a tax to be able to live how they want to.
Interesting. It's
Mm.
you hear too of people talking about radical Islamic terrorists. Well, I a lot of times will argue there are probably just as many radical Christian terrorists out there. Um, you might not hear of it as frequently because maybe like the attacks aren't at a grand scale as what you might have heard of with some of Islam in recent history, but there are just as many Christians going out there killing and threatening and doing stuff in the name of their book. I can't tell you how many people I know whose lives have been threatened or who have actually been killed in the name of Christianity. Along with wars and all that other stuff. Um, so I hate when people say that one religion is radical or terrible when in reality there's others that are just as bad. Um,
Oh yeah.
you might not just hear it as frequently, like I said again, look at over in Asia what they were doing to a lot of the Muslims and how they were treating them and killing them and doing that stuff. That's disgusting.
Hmm.
And it's
And
not just religion that can turn people into extremists. You can
No.
radicalize anybody with anything.
Right.
So people who say that it's only Muslims that are extremists are either fucking stupid or ignorant of history. A prime example is Adolf Hitler, who used religion, yes, but he radicalized people with a mindset. And we saw the fallout of what happened in Nazi Germany.
Mm.
And that was just a mindset, not necessarily a religion.
Right.
It started with religion, but it quickly became something else entirely.
Right. And it's the same with even race, and how people get radicalized into believing that their particular race is superior or better, and then
Yep.
you go around and killing, sometimes like you were saying, like with Nazi Germany, sometimes it is backed by religion or has religion tones to it, but the main start of it is, well, I don't like their race or I don't like how they look, and so let's do what we can to try to villainize them.
Yeah, that's completely right.
Mm.
And we're seeing the effects of things that older generations have done right now. So in Iraq and Afghanistan, we're seeing what the previous two generations have done, where they are being radicalized and they have easy access to military grade hardware from the former Soviet Union, and from the U.S. as well. Yes, the CIA trained the Mujahideen how to fight the Russian army, and we're seeing what is we're seeing the net end result of this, from generations of anger and hatred. And it's not even hatred that necessarily makes any real sense. It's just anger and hatred for anger and hatred's sake.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
You know, you could kind of argue a little bit, like as far as Middle East, there could be anger, hatred toward the US strictly because, yes, trying to eradicate, what people might consider radical or, terrible as far as who attacked us. But then there's also a lot of innocent that happens in with it. If a city's being taken over by a country, this is just generally, I don't want to talk about, like the war we've been in, but in general, think about it, if you have another country that comes over and is basically telling us how to run and how to do things and whatnot for decades, us growing up would probably have some sort of resentment toward that country, where normally maybe we wouldn't. And it's like, well, what do we do then to, if we had terrible people over here trying to, make a bad name for the US, how can we, rectify that? But yet, it's, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. Like I said, I've been dealing with headaches. I'm kind of all over the place. But I could kind of see where a resentment might start to come in over generations by an occupation of another country, basically telling them how they need to do things. And I'm not talking about one war in particular. I'm talking about in general.
No, I
think,
actually agree with you. Go ahead, Little Wolf.
I've been listening to a lot of stand-up comedy lately, and Jim Jeffries is definitely one of my favorite comics out there. And there was a point when he was talking about Trump and what he was trying to do with the Muslims, with trying to keep them out and to try and make them go onto a registry, saying, "Oh, we're Muslim." And he brought up a very, very good point. And he was saying, he's trying to fight hate with hate, and that's not going to work. And with what you're doing there is you're going to now tell a young teenager who probably grew up in America because their parents came over to America and their family happens to be Muslim. And now you're going to tell them that we don't want your religion here. And if you're going to be here, you have to be on a registry. And he said, how quickly and how easily would that child now become radicalized because you decided we don't want you here?
Yeah. Rhetoric has a lot to do with it, especially during this pandemic, with Trump kept calling it the China virus and stuff. And look how quickly people turned against Asians, the funny thing is, typical white America is so ignorant to different types of Asian countries that, someone from Korea, someone from Japan, wherever, Vietnam, they were basically having death threats against them and whatnot because they kept saying, the China virus. And so people would see someone who's of Asian descent and instantly think, oh, they're from China, and start like saying hateful, disgusting things to them. We have a Chinese restaurant right down the road, and they had to close for like 8-9 months because they were having threats against them strictly because they're an Asian restaurant. And so rhetoric, yeah, has a huge part to do with it. And, you know, it keeps going on. Who's to say that a bunch of, people of Asian descent don't get pissed off enough to be like, screw you, we're going to fight back? Not saying it's going to happen or not. That's what their mindset is. But I get what you're kind of um, coming at with that.
And this isn't a new thing in American history.
Right.
I'll go through a couple of the people, not in no particular order, that the U.S. has completely fucked over.
Mm-hmm.
The Native Americans, for one. Black people, Irish, Japanese, and Asians in general in World War II. Communists, anybody who was called communists in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s with MacArthurism.
Yeah.
Islam.
Even Catholics, Catholics were harded against. Was it JFK who was a Catholic, or which president was it that was a Catholic? And a lot of people, they were up in arms about a Catholic being in the White House.
I think you're right. It was JFK, and I believe that was the reason why he was assassinated, but I'm not sure on that. But
yeah,
it's fair.
Yep. Prime Red, asking, did people really turn on Asians? And they most definitely did. I don't know what news sources you look up or go into, but I mean, you can pretty much go anywhere on the internet and find out about how people were really turning against a lot of Asian people, especially early on in the pandemic. It kind of quieted down, and then it was almost like it resurged again later in last year, and it seemed to be a lot like it seemed to kind of come about anytime Trump really started to spout the China virus more again,
Yeah, I completely agree. Nickel has a point. He was pissed at the Chinese government. And you can be as pissed as you want at any government. And he later states that he's not pissed at the Chinese people. And that's a very, very important distinction to make.
Yes.
The Chinese government is absolutely horrible. I actually am not allowed to go to China. Simply because of what my profession is and the fact that I'm well known in my profession. If I go to China, I will be forfeiting every single right, and I will probably be getting thrown into a Chinese prison. Because I'm a security specialist, they believe that my job is to be a spy, and that is not the case.
Right.
But the Chinese people, I have nothing against, because they are not the ones trying to throw me into a prison. It's their totalitarian regime that is.
Yeah. And Dread Lindum, says I heard of some Thai restaurants getting attacked, and that was my point. Is people, they just see someone of Asian descent and they instantly think, Chinese, and so then they go after them, not realizing that it's a whole different, group of people. It's insane.
That also kind of brings up like another point too, was the people that actually did get upset with Trump's words and how he was towards other people. A lot of them would come out and say, "Oh, well, I'm a good Christian person." And those were the people that were getting the angriest at other people that have a different religion or who are transgendered or different sexuality or they just have a different skin color. And it's like you guys were saying before, it's like, how can you sit there and say you're a good Christian person and still attack people like this? I even asked somebody when they were trying to say something bad about a person being either transgendered or bisexual or something. I was like, do you really think Jesus would approve of what you're saying right now?
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Or would
responsible.
he say, and in my head it was like, Jesus would probably say, just let that person be. I mean, because they're not hurting you, they're not doing anything against you, and from what I've told you before, if somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek and let them slap that half too.
And Jesus also stated to more or less go hang out with the whores, the dregs of
Criminals.
society, the criminals, the murderers, the rapists, and instead of trying to persecute them, try to change their mind. So people have this idea that God is completely against all of these things in the Bible, and that is simply not the case. But because of the way it's taught today by preachers and people in power, it leads to a lot of hate against gay people, against trans people, against anybody that doesn't agree with the doctrine, not the text. The text itself, Jesus didn't give a fuck.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot behind it. Steve, you've been quiet, and I know you've been seeing crickets, and Australia has had people go against Asian people, but yeah, speak up, dude. Thoughts, opinions?
Yeah, no, I was out having a smoke when I wrote that, but yeah, it's the same thing here. So, every time that fucking orange dude opened his mouth, Australians would react just like Americans as well. So when you guys had the Black Lives Matter protests over in America, because of what happened here in some of the states with Aboriginal people, we had Black Lives Matter protests as well. The only problem is you had all the COVIDiots basically doing it and all the Karens, and this was right in the middle of COVID, and they were going out protesting, huge groups, no masks, in our big cities. And not only were they going against the police and doing the whole Black Lives Matter thing, they were also attacking anyone of Asian descent because they didn't care to think, oh, well, a Japanese isn't a Chinese person or a Vietnamese isn't a Chinese person. They just didn't care. It just shows the ignorance. And yeah, it was absolutely disgusting to watch it on the news happening. Like, you can't blame any Asian because of COVID. You've got to blame the source.
Yeah. And the thing too is, I know a lot of these new illnesses seem to stem from China, and my only argument would be, well, where's the biggest world population located? You're probably
Mm.
going to have more of those types of things happen. And then there's also, I kind of had maybe a slight weird theory is, and this is probably so off the cuff and so far off the wall, but as we start to lose more ice shelves and polar caps, I can't say for sure. Maybe there was something, that was frozen and stuff way back when, as far as bacterias or something like that, that could be also causing issues as the world heats up.
There's
Mm.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I did not mean to cut you off. Please keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's strictly a theory, but it's who's to say that that couldn't also possibly be.
JEMS actually has a really good article on the frozen bacterias and viruses and all of that. And there's basically two sides of the argument. The first side is saying that because they're so antiquated in terms of being so far, so removed from everything else that's evolved without them, that they are no threat. And then there's the other side that's saying because they aren't evolved, they are that threat. They are a big threat.
Yeah.
And right now, there's no clear consensus on which side is correct, but there is more evidence for the pathogens being less harmful. One, because there's nobody to spread them, and two, because there's, again, we've evolved without them. But more research has to be done for. It's going to be a long time before we know.
And you, Dunk, you kind of said it in the chat a little bit, kind of blame population density along with unsanitary conditions.
It's the same in India.
Yeah. It could pop up other places where there's a high density with unsanitary conditions. Hell, you could have a city here in the US that's just high population, and it just takes that right virus that maybe didn't catch on for a bit or something, or was hidden somehow or another, and all of a sudden was dormant and becomes contagious, and next thing you know starts getting spread around. And how would the US feel if all of a sudden all these other countries around the world started saying, the American virus, when just by chance it happened to start to explode again, starting here in the US?
Yeah, and Dredd is saying exactly what the argument for the other side is. I say the other side, but the side that says that the pathogens are more dangerous, and he's right. But again, they're not exactly sure.
John Oliver actually had a really good thing on this. He called it the next pandemic, and it's going to be the one that takes place after the one we're in now. And he was saying a lot of the animal ones now, like you're saying, is because of the population boom that we're having, and we're cutting down so much animal ecosystems to make room for more humans to live in. And so there's a reason why animals are now, or animal-borne diseases are now starting to become more prevalent and spreading more. It's because we're actually taking away their habitat and making it ours. And it's just something that's happened since basically ever since we've started to do the whole oh shoot, my brain just farted, but just since we started doing the whole revolution thing and encroaching on the rainforest, going up into the Arctic areas and taking over there, and like you were saying too, with with the with climate change happening and stuff that we're doing to accelerate it, we have the permafrost in the tundra starting to melt. And it's like, what kind of things are going to be found in there that will spread at
Right.
some point?
Well, and then the thing too is, viruses evolve. They become more uh, where you can catch it easier. I can't think of the damn word right now.
Or
But
it
like you
becomes
were,
more infectious.
yeah, more infectious, and like you were saying, who's to say that that there's some sort of illness or disease that usually takes over an animal or causes an animal to have like if they have colds or flus or whatnot, that as that population starts to reduce, that virus itself doesn't start to mutate, where now it does become transmissible amongst humans. Like I said, last week there was a tiger here in Minnesota zoo that tested positive for COVID. So just because it's new doesn't mean that it's new to humans, doesn't mean it hasn't been around for a long time, and it just that virus happened to evolve now where humans can catch it. Just because it happened to show up in China doesn't mean that they produced it or something. There's theories behind that, obviously. But God forbid your house cat has some sort of virus and it happens to mutate where you catch it and now you pass that on to a bunch of people, and it started here in the US because of that. You know.
Yep. And Nickel in the chat said that we're in a biological arms race with viruses and diseases versus
Yeah.
our immune system. And he's absolutely right. We are. Germ theory was something that we studied in EMS. We didn't go as in depth as a virologist would, so I'm not qualified to make any grandiose statements about it. But basically, what happens with the immune response is that your body identifies something that it thinks is a invader, a foreign substance, such as the coronavirus, and it will figure out new ways to deal with it and more effective ways of fighting it. The coronavirus, on the other hand, will mutate to try to hide itself and mask itself from the immune system. This is one of the reasons why cancer is so hard to cure. It keeps mutating in ways that your body can't predict, and it keeps cutting off different treatment pathways with radiation and other treatments. And that's what makes a lot of viruses so deadly, and you can't just use you can't just throw antivirals at it, and you can't just throw antibiotics at it because you'll make a strain that's resistant.
Exactly.
And once it's resistant, now you only have the human body to fight it. And the human body is amazing at a lot of things. We are some of the most adaptable creatures on the planet. But our immune system is nowhere near as good as a lot of other creatures.
Yeah.
But the common... I'm sorry, go ahead, Tanner.
I was just gonna quick read off Chris Durham's comment about Bob the Science Guy talking about the Spanish flu series and how it started in Kansas, but for political reasons, called it the Spanish flu. And I think I did hear something like that. I didn't watch that series, but I think I had heard something like that where, for whatever reason, they called it the Spanish flu, and I can't remember why they did, but they did.
Well, there's a couple reasons behind it. One of them is paranoia and xenophobia. We had just gotten out of our Spanish-American War a couple years previously. I think 1870 something, 1880 something. And instead of turning the blame to us, we were looking for another excuse to start a war with Mexico again. We knew we could push them around because they didn't really have much of a military at the time, because we yeeted what they had off the face of the planet. And we were looking for another excuse to fight them. That's one of the theories on why it was renamed, and I really can't say if it's true or not. But there's other political reasons why they did it, mostly xenophobia.
Not surprising for U.S.'s history on things.
Nope.
Who
And I'm
haven't
not
we,
a
Who haven't we like tried to demonize and marginalize? Pretty much every group out there.
every single
Australia.
group. No, we've demonized you guys somehow.
Oh.
I can't think of how. Maybe New Zealanders.
Okay, so Chris says he thinks that Spain was neutral in World War I, so we used them as a scapegoat.
That could be what it was.
And where coming back from war or something like that, and then people start getting sick, and so you got to scapegoat someone or something. So it could be. It's probably a mix of things. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know much.
I'm not sure if they were blaming it as on Spain or on Mexico because they speak more or less the same language.
Yeah.
And it really depends on who they were trying to blame, because they would have called it the Mexican flu if they were really trying to blame the Mexicans, and Spanish if they were trying to blame Spaniards, but also the language is called Spanish. So
All right. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say on this topic. It was pretty good mix into how things went, but it's just interesting how quickly people need to try to point a finger at something rather than just saying and accepting that it's just life. It just happens. Why does there need to be a scapegoat? Why does there, it's just so weird, like there are times where there is blame to be placed, don't get me wrong. But there are times where, a pandemic's just going to happen. You can't stop it. You can't blame anyone. It's just going to happen. I don't want to say I hope, but there's times where I would love to see Americans be put in their place by something happening or starting here and have the rest of the world point their finger at us. And so then that way Americans can feel what other groups have felt because of how quickly we are to marginalize people.
yeah, I agree with that.
In a small way, that kind of happened with Lyme disease.
To be fair, it's not a American problem. It's a human problem. We all marginalize each other. And that's one of the things that makes this group so unique. We have 4 different people and a donkey that doesn't really speak with 4 different mindsets, 4 different ideas, and 4 different political outlooks and outlooks on everything in general. And none of us have marginalized the others yet. But we are not a good cross-section of the world because, well, while logic doesn't technically exist, we can use logic. We know that we are not each other's enemies, if that makes sense. Whereas, go ahead.
I was just going to go back to what LittleWolf was saying. I didn't hear about this with Lyme's disease. Like, this is new to me, too. This is why I love having conversations, because there are so many things that I don't know, and I will be first to admit that there's a lot of stuff I do not know and that I needed to be educated on. So that's why I was saying earlier, like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I just don't know. So LittleWolf would have to explain the whole Lyme's disease one. Haven't heard that.
That one came about because I forget what state it was, but it was actually, the place was called Lyme. And that's when they first kind of discovered that it was ticks that were transferring the disease from animals to humans, and that's how it got the name Lyme disease. And then it just kind of spread through the world type thing.
Oh, for those wondering about the title of the video, I'm not trying to marginalize what you're saying, Little Wolf,
Hmm.
because it is very important. This is where Little Wolf is speaking from.
Cute.
And then, in like a weird way to kind of bring it back to what brought all of this discussion on, also with like the transgenders going into the other bathroom or whatever. A lot of times that is something that kind of gets frowned upon or whatever within like America mostly, because there are other countries out there where they have unisex bathrooms for both children and adults, and they're just fine with it. And people around America are like, oh, well, we don't want to have unisex bathrooms. And it's like, what do you think the bathroom in your house is?
Yeah.
I mean, not to make light of it, but yes, your bathroom at home is a unisex bathroom.
Right. Well, there's there's gay bars here in the Twin Cities where the bathrooms are unisex, and you don't hear anyone complaining about it. You don't hear of any sort of issues coming from it. Um, you go in there to go to the bathroom, and you come out, and usually if something is going on in there, it's you call it out. You know, um, it's not like people would turn a blind eye if something were to be happening in there. But
And if
there's
there's
been an
probably
issue,
consent.
right? But there's no one's ever complained about it. Um, and I don't want to say, oh, that's because we're more progressive than everyone else, but I mean, it is at the same time it is. But yeah,
And just say, do a courtesy flush. That's all I care about.
yes,
Mute is completely right. We need to get Clive Wells. We need to get Orwelly up in here.
yeah, yeah. So moving on, Little Wolf had a topic that you had mentioned to me one time before. If you want to start talking about that.
Okay, it kind of springboards a little bit off of the whole sports type thing. And it's the new, kind of newish thing called Let 'em Play. And it's taking place like mostly in like high schools and things like that, where parents of students who are athletes are starting to try and write letters and get it so that their children can play their sports and things like that. And I'm all for the students being able to play their sports, but I also came across this article or post where a person had put up um, this quick post on Facebook, and it says, while you are cheering for winter sports and the Let Them Play movement, I think it's important to remember this. Every single child has lost something in the last year. The high schooler who lives and breathes musicals hasn't seen a stage in over a year with no hope in sight. The third grader who learned the xylophone for a concert last year yearns for the chance to play for their parents with no hope in sight. And there's a lot more going on to it, but yes, I'm all for the students who want to play their sports. I do feel bad for them, but they're not the only ones that lost. And I'm sorry, it's kind of bringing about the feels with me, because I was one of those kids who I was in a mixture of everything. I liked playing sports. I liked going into theater class and hanging out there. I was like the chameleon of most of my groups. I could switch from group to group to group and fit in. And so I know what it's like to be like one of the math geeks who gets to hang out and go to their events where they're trying to go up against other high schools, or being one of the people who is on, like, say, the chess team or something like that. And yeah, these students are also not getting their due diligence on the things that they've lost, because a lot of them can't go into their choice group and have events, and they're not really getting the same voice as the student athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Go ahead, Tanner.
You know, this is where people forget sometimes that the arts almost have a bigger impact on the world than sports do. You
Oh yeah.
know, it's the music that, will inspire people, or make that movie just a little bit better, or that make your time out at the nightclub a little bit better. It's people who do dance that inspire new things. It's the people on the stage who are acting that become those movie stars, or actors in the plays at your local theater, or in the movie theater and stuff like that, that entertain you. And sports are entertaining, but it's also the people who have the artistic mind that come up with new architecture for buildings that you see throughout the world. And so my argument would be almost that the arts are more important than a lot of these sports. And it is too bad that, Chase was brought up a good point, because I mentioned to Chase what your idea was to talk about today, Little Wolf. And he kind of laughed about it, because, like he said, his high school, they dumped a good portion of the money into the football team, and their football team sucked year after year after year. But yet, the marching band or the one act play competitions would be coming back with trophies constantly. And no one was putting money into them or trying to improve stuff. They had to deal with what they had. Um, the school that I went to out in North Dakota, our basketball teams were really good, but the rest of our sports teams were garbage. And, they didn't put much into the theater or into the band or anything like that. I was in one act play competition where we took first. And not only that, I took a superior acting award home. And you hear nothing on that. And they wouldn't put money into that yet. Our debate team did so damn good, and they wouldn't put money into it. And I agree. It's like, don't forget about all the other kids out there that maybe sports aren't their thing. I ran cross country. I ended up stopped doing it because my dad was a marathon runner, and so after cross country practice, he'd want to go run another 10 miles, and I was like, screw that. I I ain't running anymore. Um, and I did a lot of bicycling as a kid, where we did bike tours, but it wasn't my thing. It was more so dance and theater and music and all that other stuff. And even like, I would argue shop class, people who are really good with building things and stuff like that. You don't really see the funds going towards that. And don't forget the kids, don't forget the people who entertain, and the people that make your life a little bit better in so many different aspects.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was a band geek for almost 12 years, and I played two instruments, the trumpet and the French horn. And yeah, our football team fucking sucked. They hadn't won a single game in 20, 30 years, but we were constantly taking home the awards. We were sending people to solo ensemble. Our theater class was doing incredible plays, and they would have members of the band in the pit for the pit orchestra.
Yep.
And when I left high school, when I graduated, it started to change a little bit, where more money was being put into the band boosters and theater. Hamilton started its debate club, and it was just a club. It wasn't an organized thing yet. Stuff like that. But all of the money went to the football team. Our wrestling team was phenomenal, but they never got money. So yeah, it's literally just what Tanner said, but different.
Yeah,
Same but different.
right. And like me and Duncan said, sports aren't the only important thing, though. That's the bigger point. And but Mute does say, sports can change. Look at the last 50 years, 50 to 70 years of sports, and see big changes in them. Yes and no. A lot of the big changes that maybe I've seen is just safety stuff or certain rules. Um, and they're entertaining. Don't get me wrong, but that's more so you're seeing like professional sports. Um, but I think Little Wolf's point was bringing up to talk about more so like middle school or junior high and high school, and where people are too focused on certain things. Like you said, the xylophone player who wants to play for his family, or the actor who wants to be on stage. People forget about all that, but we put such an emphasis on sports in the US. I think it was Johnny O on the plot hole one day, when he was doing either unpopular opinions or something, where he said like the high school in his town like drops like $250,000 or more into a new stadium that only gets used like 3-4 months out of the year. All the while, like the theater company could use some upgrades, or the band could use upgrades, or shop class could use upgrades, or whatever it is.
Damn.
It's just don't forget about everyone else.
Yeah, and I think there was something that was even brought up within the first few months of the whole pandemic starting, and the sports were starting to be canceled. Hockey, football, all of that was being canceled, and people were now starting to stay at home and look at stuff on YouTube or watching movies more. And even then they brought up the fact that sports is a good thing, and it's kind of a good distraction for at most a couple hours, but then you run across different YouTubers who you really like, and suddenly they're finding their stuff being watched more and more, and people started realizing, yes, the arts are a very important thing now, and it's more important than sports.
I mean, uh, you know, Chase Chase performing as a drag queen, is clearly an art and stuff like that. And I'm only using him as an example because he's directly, related with me here. Um, as far as how he's taken a hit financially, just because he can't perform, and they try to do online performances, but you might only get like 10 people watching the online performance live, and they get a tiny fraction of the tips that they might if they were actually out and about performing. It's just like people who at the local theater now not performing, and they're losing out on money, or the orchestra hall that now doesn't have anything to play, losing out on money. So many areas where people are being affected more hardcore, um, because of what's going on. And yet you do have sports going because people want to be entertained and they want to watch it. And yet they'll still pay these sports players, millions of dollars. All the while, it's like there's so many other people who aren't into sports that would rather go to the orchestra hall and watch something and have those people get paid lots of money. Why really good musicians, like true musicians, I'm not talking about just like pop artists or rock artists and stuff like that, aren't making a hell of a lot more money than what they should be, or people in the theater making a hell of a lot more money, because they're they're just as damn good, and they put in just as much work as the athlete. It may not be physical work, although I'd argue there's a lot of things in the arts that is very physical. And yet they're swept under the rug.
Yeah, I just looked up the starting salary of instrumental musicians. $10 to $16 per hour.
That's terrible.
Whereas your starting salary for something like the NFL, or your starting salary for something like college football, typically a full ride.
Yeah. Right. That's why he said they'd get a full ride. So essentially, it's like you're getting paid to pay football because you're getting an education for free.
And so that's questionable. And
Yeah, they do.
I was gonna say, do people even hear you right now?
No, because I had myself muted. No, I'm not saying that there isn't a point that you're making there, Fo. But I will say that you can't just look at the salary. You also have to look at the expectancy of the career, right? Because most sports careers are maybe 10 years. When we're talking the typical sports that we're talking about, like football and hockey and these, they're very short lived for most players.
that's fair.
Don't get me wrong, there's some people who stick around for like 30 years and don't know when to retire.
Or
Yeah, right, yeah.
Tory Punk. Or Terry Punk, sorry.
But and I mean there is an argument that some players get made too much or whatever. But a cello player is typically going to have a longer career term as a cello player than a football player.
So then
There's-
let's say this. Let's say a cello player plays for 50 years of their life. What do you think they average per year for income? Let's say $80,000. You times that
I
by
was gonna say that for the average cello, because it definitely matters what level you're at. So for the average,
Right.
probably yeah, 60 to 80,000 I would guess, and I
Right.
might be way off, but
per year. So that would be how much over the course of the possible 50 years that they're playing. I can't do math right now. My head's been too
right,
jacked
yeah.
up. But then you look at the sports player who's doing 10 years at say 2 million per year. They're clearly still banking way more than the orchestra hall player.
Right, yeah, and I wasn't saying that there isn't, like I said,
Right. I know what you mean.
Yeah, so yeah, you're looking at like 4 million over 50 years. And that's an extremely long career. So I'm not even saying
Right.
that a cellist player is going to be making, going to be in it for 50 years.
Right.
But
the thing is, it's the notoriety and it's the fame, right?
yeah,
People have a tendency to put sports players on a pedestal along with movie stars, right? They put them on a pedestal way higher than someone who is, in the orchestra hall or someone who is the Broadway theater actor. Why that is, I don't know. That's just how society is, I guess.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's
barbarian, barbaric. If that's what people are looking for, then that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's just what the culture right now deems is worth more money or whatever. And obviously there are shifts in those through the ages, but the other thing is that there are a lot of players that make millions and millions of dollars that is not necessarily the average either, because there are a lot of players that are only making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm not saying that there still isn't, questions of
Right.
how much they should be making or whatever. But I my problem more on how much they should be making is less to do with how much should somebody be paid, because if somebody is willing to pay that much for your services, then in whatever you're going to do, then that is what the job is worth.
Right.
My concern with payment in sports typically has more to do with the inequality that it creates in teams. So you have some teams that have, billions and trillions of dollars at their disposal, and other teams that only have, tens of millions or hundreds of millions at their disposal. So obviously they're not going to have the money to throw at the players at the same, and so it creates an inequality in the teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's the larger problem.
Right. Agreed there. Um, it does boil down to, what uh the thing though that would be the slight issue is, um, you know, uh building these people up as if they're gods, and so then you think, or they think, that they deserve like this huge buttload of money. And some people might argue, well, it's because that, with professional athletes, it's like they're putting their bodies at risk, and this and that. Well, there's there's lots of trades out there, my job being one of them, where we do just as much physical labor, or are at just as much risk, if not more, of injury and stuff like that, where uh if the argument would be that, then I should be making, and people in trade should be making a hell of a lot more money as well.
Yeah. Well,
Seems like the stunt doubles too, who do the stunts in place of the
oh
actors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Corridor Crew does some good sit downs with stunt actors, where they watch like different stunts with the stunt actors and what it costs, and a lot of times they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, you're breaking a rib in doing that stunt, but you're doing the stunt." Stunt actors. It's absolutely brutal what they go through. But I was also going to say, the
Oh, you're really quiet, Steve. Turn up your volume.
Yeah.
yeah, it's something on your end.
Fine.
But you also have a lot of professions or trades that are very taxing on mental, stuff. And I'm not even talking things that where it requires like people with doctorates and stuff like that. Like look at ATC. That
God.
job has the highest suicide rate because of how stressful it is and stuff like that. And so, it's one of the kind of weird things is we tend to prioritize in a lot of ways physical stuff, but mental stuff is also very important. And none of my comments were to undermine like the importance of other arts and stuff like that. But I do think since we have a lot of non-sporty people in our group and community. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry. It's easy to rag on sports and they get this and there's this and that and the other thing, and to minimalize it. But I mean, sport is also good, and so it's one of those things of yes, maybe it gets too much notability or whatever, or these sport parents that are like, who cares if there's a virus killing everybody? My kid needs to be playing football. Yes, that's terrible. And it wasn't to take away anything from what LittleWolf was saying early on, because I think there was a good point in that. But it's also like we can't just trash on sport and act like, oh well, sport is worthless. because it's
Right.
not.
Oh no,
Yep.
I'm not trashing on sport at all with this. I'm saying yes, it's a great thing that these parents want to do this for their children. But it's also the fact that if we're going to do something like this for the kids that play sports, we should try and set up a thing where we have the theater kids, maybe set up like some kind of a web drama that they can get together and put together something, or even make like an audio drama that they can get together and do, or
Right.
something. I mean, I have no problem with them wanting to do this for their children. Every child should be able to have fun and do what they love in a certain way. But it's
Agreed.
also the fact, like they were saying in the thing, there's the little kid who just learned to play the xylophone, and they were supposed to play it in front of the school and for their parents, and they're not going to be able to now.
Yeah.
Type
Oh,
thing. I mean, yeah, they could do it at home, but it's not almost the same thing.
Right. And
yeah, I have.
and the other thing is and something that I've had a conversation with a lot of the people that I know, because while I'm single, I do have a lot of friends and coworkers that are married with kids at different age groups, and it's I, yeah. But you know, this is an extreme time, and it sucks, and we've all got to make sacrifices. And yes, that means the kids need to make sacrifices too, even the ones who are
Yep.
too young to understand why. And it sucks for them. It really does. It sucks for the people who are in high school who aren't getting to do their sports and are missing out on crucial years. And it sucks for the kids that aren't able to do their science fairs or their theater or whatever. But the virus doesn't give a shit. And if there's a way that you can do it safely, 100% do it. But if we all got to make our sacrifice, and the quicker that the more that we do it, and the faster that we just give in and make the sacrifice until things are safe, the faster we'll get to that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, I was totally ripping on sports. I like sports, but I'm totally ripping on them. So where you say I'm not ripping on that, you weren't ripping on sports, I will wholeheartedly say I was ripping on them.
And I will agree.
But yeah,
Because
Yeah.
Well,
so,
that's
like,
why I
it's-
said that.
It's not that I hate sports or anything. My only argument behind like these people arguing that sports need to be played for these high school students, all the while forgetting about the arts and stuff like that. That's where I rip on sports and say, to me, arts have contributed more to the world than what people than sports have. And when I say arts, I'm encompassing so many things. Like I said, the architects. People wouldn't think that architecture is an art, but it quite literally is an art, and
Yeah.
it uses science and mathematics, and science to me is an art too. You got to have that artistic open mind in order to think of different theories or ideas to try to prove what science might say. And so I totally was ripping on science or on sports, but it doesn't mean I hate sports.
Yeah, fuck
Yeah,
science. Wait,
start
what?
ripping on science. Fuck that. What's it ever done for us?
This fucking flat, kids.
Oh God! And the Four Swordsmen have just now all turned into flat earthers and COVIDiots and soft citizens. Run, masses!
Oh,
I want to speak to your manager.
Right.
Oh no! And now they're becoming Karens.
Steve's been
This is
quiet.
actually-
You were turned down quite a ways. It sounded like you wanted to say something earlier, and I hope we didn't cut you off.
No. I was just saying I couldn't hear Mute Donkey or FoeHammer when I was on my phone for some weird reason, but I can hear you guys on the computer.
Weird.
Yeah. Like I can hear Tanner and LittleWolf, no problem at all on my phone. But anytime Mute spoke, could not hear him.
Must be the
Blame
frequency of my voice.
Yeah, I think so. It just doesn't agree with my phone.
Yeah.
But
Point
just
your
quickly,
phone
another
at
thing I
the
wanted to
moon
throw in
again.
there while we were talking about the stupid fucking virus that's going around is, if you think about it too, also in a way, that virus is probably more of an advanced being than what we humans really are. If you think about it, because like you said, the virus doesn't discriminate, whereas humans do.
And do RPGs.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
that's
well,
fair.
On top of that, with whatever we're trying to do to try and destroy it and kill it and eradicate it, it's just going to change, and it'll change in a way that whatever we're doing now will have some effect, but will not kill it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. This is actually a perfect segue into the thing that I was going to discuss, which actually has nothing to do with the virus, but it has everything to do with particles.
Oh.
So there is an experiment that was done recently called the CMS collaboration, and it's where they're observing subatomic particles or quarks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 7 quarks. They have placeholder names because we have no fucking clue what they do.
Nope.
There's up, down, left, right, beauty,
BB.
strange, and something
not-
else. We're gonna call it mute donkey.
It's not beauty.
Yeah, there's a beauty
As
quirk.
particle.
All right, I'm good.
Everyone's rushing to do Google search.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's up down. Okay, that's what I thought. It's up
Charmed.
down
Charmed.
top. Yeah, top bottom charm
Bottom,
and strange.
Charmed, stranged, and
There's just the
beauty.
6.
no,
No.
there's 7.
Uh,
I'm looking
I
at the
mean, you
experiment
have-
right now,
oh
and
wait,
it says
go.
a beauty quirk.
I've never heard of the beauty quirk, so this is something new.
But
Just
a
because
whole
you haven't
new-
heard it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Mute. God.
yeah, mute.
That's why I said it
Jesus
was something
fucking
new.
Christ.
I didn't say.
Yeah,
I mean, you
I've
have
got 6
gluons,
as well.
photons, and Higgs, but
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
So
You're
particles-
wrong.
You've got up, down, strange, charm, bottom, and top.
You're just a
Yes.
strange bottom. Shut up.
So physicists, particle physicists to be specific, have observed a new composite particle that they have never seen before. And it is, as with everything else, it consists of 3 quarks, a beauty quark, a strange quark, and a down quark. And they're cascade particles. So basically what happens is they create different particles before they stop existing. And I had a conversation with my biggest rival, PhD Tony. And the CMS experiment is trying to determine what dark matter is based off of what quarks make it up. And what they're hoping to do is figure out what dark matter is and what quarks do. We know that they make stuff up. They're the building blocks of atoms, but we don't know how or why or anything else. But what they're trying to do right now is figure out the rate that new particles are being created. There's a lot of dark matter. We know that dark matter is some form of particle. And they're trying to match the rate that would make sense for how much dark matter there is. And it's very, very slow going from what I've seen and from what we talked about. But they are going to be identifying options that are physically impossible. Like I said, the rate of production, that is one of them. Right now, one of the things I asked PhD Tony was if dark matter filled the void uniformly or if it was kind of concentrated in different areas. I'm sorry, my German Shepherd is playing in the background.
that's
Might have been barking this whole stream.
Raven, you can't go that way. Got back up, baby.
So, a hexaquark. Would
Back
that
there.
be it?
Here, I'll move. You can back up. Sorry.
Because I just found an article speaking about dark matter and all that, and it's mentioning a hexaquark, quark, however you say it.
That's fair. There is somebody from Dr. Beck. There's somebody named Dr. Becky. I will grab the link and toss it in the chat. And
all right, so I'll just quickly read this little paragraph here, if you don't mind.
Please do.
It just quickly says, researchers think that that a newly identified subatomic particle may have formed the universe's dark matter right after the Big Bang, approximately 13.8 billion years ago. Sorry. While scientists have determined that up to 20% of the matter in the universe could be dark matter, our understanding of what the mysterious substance might be is still lacking, as no one has ever directly observed it. Now, in a new study, nuclear physicists have suggested that dark matter could be made from a newly identified particle, the D-star hexaquark. End of paragraph.
So what makes up the D-star hexaquark and what makes up the beauty quark and all that other stuff then?
Okay, so the next paragraph after that is literally, what's a hexaquark? I'm not reading it.
So Nickel asked me, what do I think about the notion that graviton can be the Higgs boson or vice versa? There is no evidence linking them currently that I have seen. I am not anywhere near the level of somebody like PhD Tony. I am nowhere near the level of Clive Wells, or I don't even have a degree in physics.
Like I used to watch a ton of shows on all that stuff, and I used to grasp it really well. As I've stated many times before, like I can grasp these things really well, but I can't vocalize it out properly, and I can't teach people it. And it's so interesting, but man, I have not kept up with it probably in the last 5 to 8 years or something like that. And the things that keep coming out is just amazing to me, and what we can discover and find.
Yeah. So to answer your question a little bit, Tanner, quarks are the basic building blocks of all matter. I
was making up a joke essentially.
Yeah, so below
I got what they are, but
below atoms you have quarks, leptons, and I forget
Neons.
Yeah, you've got and so quarks. There are 6 quarks. If there's a 7th one, I haven't heard of it and I haven't seen it anywhere. But in the standard model, there are 6 quarks. But only 3 of them are used to build up all of what we would consider normal matter.
Right, and I was just joking that we keep finding more and more out, that I was saying, well, then what makes up a quark? You know, like 10 years from now, we might say, well, a quark is made up out of 20 different things. And those, it's just so cool, all the different things that we're capable of finding and learning as time goes on.
Yeah. And so
the others are also gauge bosons and scalar bosons.
Yeah. So you have like bosons, and there's the way it's normally like split into like 3 groups. The other thing I was going to say is quarks are at a quantum level. So if they are made up of something, it is unlikely that we will be able to figure that out in any reasonable amount of time, because as far as we can tell, quantum is the smallest size that we can detect things at or measure things at. That's not to say that things can't go smaller, but we don't have the ability to deal with things below the quantum level.
Right.
I mean, we barely have the ability to deal with them at the quantum level.
There is actually 12 quarks. Because you're right, there's 6 that are just like the basic quarks.
Are you talking about the supersymmetry?
Nope. You have anti-quarks, and the number rises to 36 different quirks if you take color changes into account.
Yeah,
I
I
wasn't
wasn't
going to
gonna
touch that.
touch color changes, but
I just had to prove you wrong a little bit, Mute.
As
fine.
he said in the chat, that Mute's right.
Uh,
And now
they-
tries to prove you wrong.
Mute's right, but he's wrong. As with other things in quantum physics.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
FoeHammer's trying to talk about now is quantum chromodynamics. Oh, I can't even say that word.
Yeah.
Chronodynamics? Yeah, something like that. Chromodynamics. That's it.
And I think anti-quarks are only hypothesized through supersymmetry. Symmetry. God,
Words
I don't
are
know.
hard today, eh?
Yeah, last
Hey,
night I was having the problem with the same
I
problem.
just want to ask you a favor real quick.
But I might be wrong on that.
Stop using my name in vain, please. Go on.
But
So-
It's cool and all that you want to call me God, but stop using my name in vain.
yeah, no, yeah. If you start adding color changes and everything, yes, the number goes way up. Damn you, Foe.
Yeah, I know, right? He's just like, no, I'm going to screw this guy up.
So, Nickel, like I said, I'm not a physicist, so I have a very, very, very poor grasp on what a Higgs boson even is. As
It's
all
the
of
Tanner
us
particle.
do.
Yeah.
We can kid ourselves into thinking that we know anything about this, but even Tony has stated that at this level, nobody fucking knows.
So,
But at the same time, we know a lot. I'm sorry, Mute, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, as I understand it, and once again, like you, not a physicist. I've studied quite a bit of physics, but not a physicist. Definitely not a quantum anything. From my understanding, it's not the Higgs boson that gives mass. It's the hypothesis or theory that the Higgs field gives mass, and because the Higgs boson is the particle and the Higgs field is the field that everything that permeates through, and I don't off the top of my head know exactly what the Higgs boson does, so I'm not even gonna try and go into all of that.
Well,
And graviton isn't even theorized right now because a theory is proof. It is a hypothesis. And it
Aren't they
is
the
one of
pushy and
many.
bullytrons?
I thought the graviton was
Pushy
a
and fully
disproven theory, and I
No,
once
you guys,
again I
you
might
guys
be
are all
completely-
wrong. The gravitron it exists. They have it at the state fair every year here. In Minnesota.
Okay.
Get it right.
It is a hypothetical quantum of gravity, an element
Yeah.
particle that mediates the force of gravity. There is no complete quantum field theory of gravitons due to an outstanding mathematical problem with renormalization and general relativity. I have no
Yes.
fucking clue what any of that means, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. The end of my conversation with PhD Tony was me recommending Old Man's War to him because he's getting up to that age where he can enlist in the Colonial Union infantry.
That's hilarious. I'll post a link to a nice little kind of an old
Gluon.
actually there's a couple
I don't know
here.
why I looked that up, but I kept thinking gluon in my head over and over and over. And
Yeah, cuz they're part of all that.
yeah,
These are great, especially if you can understand even half of it.
so yeah, I can't remember what shows I used to watch. I used to watch so many of these things, and I followed it for so long, and I understood it so well, but I haven't kept touch with it in a long time. I know there was that one documentary out there about the LHC and finding the Higgs boson and everything else like that. And when they were able to finally, quote unquote, find it or, prove it or whatever else like that, I think that was probably the last time that I really kept up on it. But I haven't touched into that subject in so long. I should get back into it because I used to love watching that stuff.
Awkward silence.
I was just about to say, all of a sudden, now it goes quiet. Oh yeah, we have been going for about.
Yeah,
an
we've
hour.
been going 100 minutes.
Steve, go
All
on.
right, I've got a quick thing to throw in, and this was a complete spur of the moment thing that happened last night before I went to bed, and it's probably very out of character for me. So everyone knows I like to partake in a bit of alcohol most
No
days,
way.
every day. Yeah. So the lovely partner decided to make a bet with me last night. If I can not drink for an entire month, I get $500. Now, you watch how quick I spend that $500 on beer at the end of this month of sobriety.
Oh, that's awesome. That's too good. Maybe you should spend that.
Thank you.
Spend that $500 on trying to figure out how to not mute Foe and Mute Donkey.
Yeah, seriously, Jesus Christ. I mean, by the end of the month, you should be sober, but that's questionable. You probably won't.
Right.
It'll be close. And maybe you can beat me at a game of Command & Conquer. But again, I doubt it.
See, he's in luck because even with the month's time, just as he urinates, him inhaling like the fumes of his own urine can help keep his alcohol level up. Tony, you are late to the party.
Yeah, we're just about to leave.
Yeah.
I have one more insult, and then I'm, well, other than signing off and saying bye, I'm all set. I beat both Sirf and Steve so badly that both of them cried for the rest of the night, and Steve did it live on air, and it was quite hilarious. He cried so hard that he muted himself and said that he was letting me win and that he was going to go set up a new game because he's a sore fucking loser.
And I rage quit.
Oh, yes, you did.
Oh, jeez.
But anyway, that's all I have.
Yep. All right, well, let's wrap up. Let's go around and talk about what might be coming up this week or what you have done, and then we'll call it a day.
Let's start with you.
All right, let's see. I hit 100 subs, so I did a big stream the other night for that. So yay for hitting 100 subs. Coming up this week, I'm going to do my live stream on Wednesday like normal. Time is to be determined. Currently I have it set for 12:30 a.m. UTC time. It's subject to change based on how people stream. And then hopefully my created content for Thursday, I'm planning on interviewing one of my good friends. She is a tandem instructor, and I would like us to discuss safety in skydiving that doesn't deal with the skydiving rig and her experiences as a tandem instructor and an AFF instructor. And that's pretty much it.
LittleWolf?
Oh, you're muted, or I can't hear him. Oh,
yeah, I can't hear Wolf.
We'll do Steve first, and then when Wolf pops back in.
Yeah, all right. I've literally got nothing going on. We're at a bit of a hold up with the house at the moment. So, yeah. Don't feel like throwing so much money at a company that looks like it could possibly be a bit of a scam. So, and even our bank has said, hold on, something's not quite right here with the house we're building. So, yeah, we're at a bit of a standstill at the moment until we work that out. Other than that, yeah, I'm still just doing gaming streams. I'm usually over on Alien X's channel most of the time anyway. you guys will know that. Other than
When
that,
do
yeah,
the bandages come off from Foe screwing you up
Oh,
in
for
the ass
fuck's
in the
sake.
game?
The bandages are still on. They're not coming off. I need that padding.
And if he
Alright.
plays me again, he's going to need to add even more.
No. All right,
Little
Little
Wolf?
Wolf, are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here. My Discord decided I'm gonna hiccup and throw you away. Well, as usual, with my channel, I never really have a set topic, and I just kind of put out a video whenever. I'm kind of hoping to put one out here in a couple of days for different listeners who say they pretty much listen to me whenever they're awake, and it's like, okay. But, been watching lots of Godzilla movies and things like that, so I might do something about that, or look up, I found some H.P. Lovecraft stories I might read into and put those out. Just kind of whatever pops into my little wolf brain.
Oh, speaking of what you play, for anyone that watches my gaming streams and I play LittleWolf's audio in the background, I actually got a copyright strike this morning from one we did a couple of days back. And it was literally like nearly at the end of the stream. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was one of the comedians. I actually did get a strike for that. But they can't touch me.
Yeah. I'll probably get one from my stream on. Well, I did 2 streams on Wednesday, but I'll probably get one from when I was playing the performance of Chase as the original Eve, being there's music in there. They'll probably strike it at one point.
Yeah, they'll probably strike that.
Yeah. FoeHammer, you.
I am currently constructing a argument for who is the better God Emperor, the Dune 2 God Emperor, or the Warhammer 40,000 God Emperor.
Ooh, 40k.
That is debatable.
Yeah, that's the other
And
reason
you
why we got
will-
it quick. 'Cause don't you have to go and do that over on AT2 stream soon?
Next week.
Oh, it's next week. Okay.
AT2 and I will be hosting a discussion on who's the better God Emperor. And I'm very excited for this because Dune is one of my favorite series. Second to Command and Conquer, and Warhammer is my favorite overall, all-encompassing series with books, games, animated TV shows, board games, etc. So it'll be a lot of fun. Other than that, I'm just going to be working a lot and hugging my dog tonight.
Very cool. All right, let's all say goodbye before Mute quickly puts on the end, and then we'll say, okay, put on the end. So
Okay, bye-bye,
thanks
you
everyone
awesome
for
bipeds.
coming by. Yep.
Later, bitch.